Okay, we've done it. Our picture edit is complete and we now need to move on to a basic track lay to get the project ready for a real sound designer and the composer. Now, picture lock is the point in post-production that means we can no longer change our picture edit. This is super important and needs to be respected. Believe me, I've been on projects where this was ignored and it fluffed up the grade and VFX completely because the director did not understand the workflow. When we reach picture lock, the director has signed off on the edit and says, right, I'm happy with what I see here and we can move on. Now, we cannot change anything about our picture edit after this point under any circumstances. We are committed at this point, so let's explain why. The edit is not the only thing in post-production. We have audio edit, possibly ADR, music, composition, also grade, VFX, online edit and a metadata edit, and yeah, more of that metadata stuff, if it's for broadcast delivery. A lot of stuff comes after the edit in order to produce a finished project, and all of these steps depend on the offline edit we've just done. We cannot change this because then everyone else further down the chain has to start again. Colorists have to reconform a new edit, composers have to recompose a new piece to fit the edit changes, VFX artists might have days of work wasted through compositing an unnecessary shot, or God forbid if they've been doing loads of roto and then people change their minds. So at this point we are done. The offliner, that's you, can no longer fiddle with the picture edit, is largely complete barring some foundational audio work. We need to understand and respect this because post is an immensely expensive business. It still costs roughly 3 times the cost of production, so wasted time is felt keenly and right in the budget. We've now reached picture lock. We're going to go through a simple audio edit and track lay for this piece before we call it a day though. So click on through to the next lecture once you're ready. So, we've reached picture lock, but we're not finished yet. Now, I know this is an editing course. Why have we got so much content on audio? Well, the picture edit is part of the edit, but the editor's responsibilities don't end just there. Yes, it is indeed true that we have sound designers and audio specialists, but the offliner, and that's you, remember, has to do some foundational sound work in order to get our project ready for whatever audio specialist or composer is going to receive the project later on. Also, if you're working freelance, then you need this. Your client won't always have the budget to get a specialist on board, so you'll have to wear another hat. Also, audio, alongside broadcast engineering, is one of the biggest skill gaps in the industry. Film schools neglect to teach it, students show the least interest in it. A good audio specialist will not want for work, and an editor who can also produce good audio work will be that much more attractive to both clients and employers. So it's well worth getting it down. Now, if you're still not convinced, then tough. You need this, believe me. Don't skip this module no matter what. Like it or lump it, you have to deal with audio in at least some capacity during the edit. So in this module, we're going to go over all the basics. We won't do a full-blown audio edit here because that's not what this course is about and that's not what editors need to do. What you pick up in this module will, however, enable you to turn around some simple short films and like interviews and things like that by yourself. So, let's take the last step and finish this job. Click on through to the next lecture once you're ready. Right, this is actually a tricky subject because saying that there's a definite set of audio conventions for YouTube is not exactly true. There are some conventions that are generally respected, but a lot of people do their own things in YouTube videos. So, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do and what we do when mixing something for web. Because it's difficult to tell how the video is going to be watched because we have so many what we call different viewing scenarios. Is someone using a laptop or their phone? Are they wearing earbuds, etc., etc.? We don't know exactly how the video is going to be watched, and because of that we generally mix things to go out online to be quite loud. That way they will at least be intelligible and readable on a broad variety of devices. We can always turn the volume down a little bit, but if something just can't be heard, well then that's no good. Now, a lot of people do their own thing. Some talking head YouTubers might just limit their narration to -6 decibels. Some might use broadcast conventions. Other people use cinema conventions when mixing for YouTube because they think people are going to watch them maybe on a television or on a laptop with headphones on. It depends on how you intend for your videos to be watched. A lot of people, and this is true of film trailers on YouTube in particular, just try to make their mix as loud as they possibly can. They avoid 0 decibels and they avoid what we call distortion. And distortion is what happens when somebody speaks very, very loudly and you reduce the volume, you still hear an odd artifact. I will just shout into the microphone right now to show you what distortion really sounds like. No matter what I do to this audio, it's always going to sound wrong. And that is distortion. We want to avoid anything going up to and above 0 decibels because it always gets distorted. The last thing about audio for web is it tends to be what we call more compressed. There's less difference between the loud and quiet sounds in the mix because this has a tendency to make things easier to notice and easier to read whilst you're watching the video. It does have an unfortunate side effect of making your video seem quite flat orally, but it's something that we end up doing on web just to make sure that everybody watching it at least gets the most important parts of the sound mix. So let's talk a little bit about how we're going to mix the audio for this project. The big thing, and always the most important thing, is our dialogue. We're going to keep our dialogue around -12 or -10 decibels. That's broadly considered the ideal for clearly spoken dialogue in both drama and factual. We're going to play our sound elements by ear. We might end up mixing them just a little bit louder than we might like, just to compensate for maybe somebody watching this on a phone or watching this on a laptop. And the only way you can be sure about this is to export it and watch it on the right device under the right conditions. You need to do what we call a real-world confidence check. But we're not going to go that far in this project. We're going to play this by ear. It may be a little bit louder than we might initially like, but we're going to give ourselves room to use some louder effects and soundscape should we want to do that. Finally, our maximum volume. We're not going to mix up to 0 because that's a horrible thing to do. Stuff mixed to 0 never sounds great. So our maximum loudness is going to be at an absolute peak, -3 decibels. I don't imagine anything's actually going to reach that in this mix though. I'm going to try and get nothing louder than -6. That's going to be my ceiling for loud audio in this project. We put all of these kind of conventions together. We're going to get something that sounds good for most people watching our project on a laptop. And again, if you want to know what it's like when a viewer watches your film, you have to listen to it back, you have to watch it back under those conditions. There's really no way to guess it otherwise, especially on web stuff. You just have to do a confidence check and make sure that it fits. So we've got our basic conventions down, and the really big one is dialogue around -12 and -10 decibels. That's the big one here. We have quite a bit of demonstration to go through, but after that we're going to carry out what we call our dialogue edit, or at least our dialogue leveling phase first, which is when we get the volume of all of our dialogue to a place that we like. We will then proceed to mix our soundscape. We will do the rest of our sound design exercise around the dialogue that we have leveled, and that is because the dialogue is the most important audio in our project. Right, so we've got a short primer on how we're going to approach this. We've got a lot of stuff to cover in this module, so time to get to work. Click on through to the next lecture.